So we just welcomed a couple more voices to the line. This is Nikki from City of Light Consulting. I'd love to hear, we'll just kind of go around and introduce ourselves and say who we are and where we're from and you know, what brings you to this meeting today. So I'm Nikki Hitchcock. I'm from City of Light Consulting, and I came into the nonprofit world right out of college. I've been in there for longer than I should have been. And now we've been consulting for 3 years. And so I went from, you know, managing one organization's problems to being back-end support for several organizations. So self-care is really important to me. Tracy, can I pass it to you next?
All right, I'm Tracy Tessier, and I work with Nikki, and I pretty much am the one who sends a million emails for about all sorts of things. And yeah, so.
Judy, can you introduce yourself next?
Sure, I'm Judy Christian. I'm with the Lupus Alliance of Upstate New York. We cover 33 counties in New York State, which is a little over half the state. We're a tiny organization with our hands full. My lot in life, my role in life has been to take on challenged nonprofits and turn them around. And this one's particularly challenging and has an incredible amount of promise, but that's taxing. And that's why I'm here. To learn.
Yes.
Because you're never too old to learn.
No, never. I don't see a name with this phone number, but it's 6525. Would you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, that might be me. We're on an external line. Hi, I'm Todd Kanizik. I'm the Executive Director of Art Services Initiative of Western New York. We're a regional arts council providing professional development, advocacy, grants to cultural organizations and artists in 5 counties, as well as public programming to increase access to the arts, including Make Music Day tomorrow in Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and Jamestown. And that all gives you an idea as to why I'm here.
It sounds like you have a lot on your plate. And you said your name was Todd?
Yes. And also, you know, we working with all of these organizations, you know, like 2/3 of our culturals are volunteer run or have one paid staffer. And so it's not only something that's really interesting and front of mind for me at my organization, but as I work with the people we serve.
Right, right. Absolutely. There's nobody more exhausted than a committed volunteer, that's for sure. And then someone's on the line, Karsten Wisnock. Is that, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Kirsten.
Oh, Kirsten.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm with Investigative Post in Buffalo.
Okay,
great. Nonprofit Media Center.
Great. Wow, this is a very Western New York centric group today, which is awesome. We're City of Light Consulting. We love Buffalo, but sometimes we'll wind up with a really varied all over the U.S. group. So this is awesome to be around other Western New Yorkers. So we have an agenda today, but we're going to follow it very loosely. The idea of the Roundtable is a chance for leaders and innovators and nonprofits to get together and talk out an issue and kind of all leave a little stronger with a sense of the organizations in the region and a chance to kind of test out some things in a safe space. So, you know, there are times where, you know, you just can't go to your ED and ask a question, or you just can't go to your board and say, like, this is where I am. So this is meant to be a safe space where you can kind of say, like, this is the thing I'm feeling, or this is the big question I have. And we all leave stronger. And so we'll kind of loosely follow an agenda, and we will hopefully all leave with some ideas to take back with us. So I'm wondering, as we kind of are all talking about these big things that we have going on, do you guys have any, you know, the popper on the turkey that you're supposed to use to know the turkey is done? It's been in the oven for just long enough and it's finished and it needs to come out. Do you have an emotional version of that you see in your own life that says, like, okay, you know, I am done, I need rest? The Ariana Huffington rather, has that analogy of how we all use our cell phones and we're so cognizant of when we have battery life left on our cell phones. And we're watching that all the time, but we're not watching our internal clock and how we're feeling and what kind of energy reserves we may have left. Have you noticed anything like that in your own life? Kind of a barometer for how you're feeling? I know for me, one of the things has been that when my car starts to get really dirty, and when I know it's been like 3 weeks since I've like taken a shower and done my hair, I start to kind of wonder about where I am emotionally. Do you guys have anything like that you've noticed?
Yeah. I've discovered a couple things recently, and I had suspected I was on an empty tank for a while, and came home last night after a 12-hour day and remember putting my head down for a second and waking up 4 hours later. I never, ever, ever do that. If I nap for something, it's 20 minutes at the most, and I wake right up. I was down for 4 hours, which was a real tell for me. And the other thing is I'm far less creative. When I'm at rest or when I have been rested, I'm much more creative, and I find I'm stymied by the least little thing when I've been working too hard and for too long without a break.
So it's like you can't access your full self because you are feeling really, really exhausted. I want to welcome Joyzetta to the line, who just joined us. Hi, Joyzetta.
Hello.
Would you introduce yourself? Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Joyzetta Pierce. I'm the director at the African American Museum of Nassau County in Hempstead, New York.
Thanks for joining us. We were just talking about if we notice any signs when we're starting to feel burned out. So, any like big signs that you see. And Judy mentioned that, she sat down for a minute and woke up 4 hours later.
I've had that experience, and lately.
Todd, what about you? Have you ever noticed anything like that where you kind of see a physical symptom before you might pick it up emotionally?
Yeah, I carry a lot in my kind of neck and shoulders. And so like if there's a time when I get home from work and I'm like, I need a heating pad, well, that sort of indicates, and what's amazing about that is that I rarely experience it while I'm at work, right? It's getting home after the 10 or 12-hour day, or even after a short day, but a hard day. And, and then it's like, okay, yeah, now that I'm getting a chance to decompress, here we go,
Yeah, it's like the adrenaline finally wears off and you could feel what's happening in your body a little bit more. Kirsten, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I know she said her internet wasn't stable, so she might be coming in and out too.
Got it. Okay, great. So when you're seeing that and your body's saying, stop, halt, problems, let's work. I mean, we wind up with, these very full plates as nonprofit professionals. It's very hard for us to make the time we need to make for ourselves. Have you noticed any quick fixes that can kind of get you through a day, other than a cup of coffee? What's the thing that helps you pull through the end of a hard day?
A walk.
A walk.
Yeah, I don't do it nearly enough, but a walk helps.
I've heard that there's actually some physiological thing that kind of helps you with hemispheric thinking when you're kind of doing that right-left repetitive motion and moving in space. I don't know if there's anything to that, but I have heard that it's, kind of a important biological thing. I've noticed that sitting down with a cup of hot tea or water and, really paying attention to the act of just drinking that cup of water, or, turning off all of my screens and even giving myself the chance to, you know, I'm constantly working because I work for myself, and you'd think that that would be liberating, but it's not, because there's no clock that I punch at the end of the day and I'm done, which is a lot like your role as executive directors. So I'm constantly checking on my phone. I'm constantly checking my phone to make sure that everything's okay with their social media management. And one thing that I find really refreshing is that when I'm online somewhere, I don't take out my phone and check it. I give myself permission to not check my phone for a few minutes. And it's amazing how refreshing being online, waiting for something can be when you're doing nothing. Any other unusual tips like that? Has anybody else noticed anything little that can kind of save their sanity a little when it feels like everything's on fire?
I'm a knitter, and that relaxes me a whole lot. I mean, I just decide that I have to do something where I don't have to read a pattern or something. If I'm really stressed out, I will just pick up and make something short that I can do in a day or whatever, and not too complicated that I already know the pattern to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been interested in that, and all I care about is, well, how many stitches more, and nothing else, and I just close everything else out and just do that. And then I look at it and say, oh, this is cute. This is a nice little baby's bib,
I have a 2-year-old, Teresa. I haven't gotten any mail from you.
I gotta send you a couple.
Tracy, have you noticed anything? What helps you? I think I know. Tracy's got a weird one.
Wait, which one?
Maybe Tracy has more than one weird one.
I can't. So I don't always have the choice to do what I want to do when I need to do it. But frankly, during hockey season, I'll put the game on and not really pay attention to it, but it's there. When it's not hockey season, what do I do, Nikki? I was thinking, I like to read, but I don't get to do that nearly enough.
I was thinking about your thing about mowing the lawn.
Oh yeah, I love to mow the lawn.
Do you have a large lawn?
It's big enough that it's just big enough. I don't need to get a riding lawnmower, but my sister was complaining about it the other day when she did it for me because I was doing something for her. But yeah, I do like to mow the lawn. I still have to do the front, so.
I'm keeping her busy with roundtable things. So there's actually, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but there's actually there's a burnout inventory that happens. So there's exhaustion. That's just physical, flat out exhaustion. And then there's something else called burnout. And it's a psychological feature that, we don't really know a ton about, but the actual inventory is used to understand. Burnout is really common in nurses and in executives and educators, and so it's pretty well studied in those cases. And they don't really know exactly what happens. There's not like a DSM explaining, okay, well, if you have this symptom and this symptom and this symptom, then you're most likely going to be, it's likely that you're experiencing burnout. But they do have, there's 3 scales that they look at to kind of understand, and it's culturally specific, so they're developing different ones for Eastern cultures, but this is what works in Western cultures. And the survey attempts to address emotional exhaustion, which is feeling of being overextended or exhausted by one's work. There's a depersonalization that happens, and it's kind of a sense of, unfeeling or impersonal response. So, for example, if you're working in a really service-heavy profession with a lot of at-risk clients, you start to kind of turn off your empathy a little bit, and you're maybe offering them a little less grace, a little less understanding. And then there's a sense of removal from your personal accomplishments, and almost a sense that you can't feel proud of your competence or secure in your decisions. And those are the 3 areas that they look at. If you had to take a guess today, which one of those stands out? If you feel comfortable sharing, I won't call on anyone. But do any of those stand out to you as like I've really felt like the last couple of weeks I've noticed this in my own life.
There's a couple. Is it a weekend, Saturday?
I just get tired.
Yeah.
Like I'm done. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Going to bed.
So like what these guys would say is that's, you might be fatigued, you might be exhausted, but maybe not truly burned out according to this survey. So that's a good thing because it's a little less permanent and you can wake up a little refreshed.
Nikki, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think that burnout can come in, not in necessarily a physical way, but in the way you think about things, not just how you respond to people openly? Because I found recently more doubt about my choices. I'm confident about the decisions I make for the organization. I find that maybe my choices and my patience are, my choices, I start to doubt them, and my patience, I start to lose it more, or I go directly to a more negative thought than and I think I wonder if that's not a sign of burnout.
Yeah. So you had asked the question, is it possible that it's less physical and more emotional, and that those sort of emotional things are more the case? And actually, I think that the burnout inventory fatigue is actually not even really considered like a physical fatigue. It's more about the relationship you start to have with your work. So, am I accessing my full creativity? Do I feel at the end of the day like this has value? Do I feel like I'm making a difference? I don't know a single person working in the nonprofit world who I don't think wants to truly make a difference. So at the end of the day, I think being able to look at it and say, all right, like I did something, I accomplished something today, is something that's less accessible when you feel burned out and overwhelmed and you're so busy looking at the plates you're spinning that you can't celebrate the accomplishments. And so I think that you're right on there. I think you're absolutely, touching on something really important. Anyone else notice anything?
The rental for that room is $125.
I think you just stop caring sometimes. Like what I used to do before this, I worked the call center for HSBC. Nothing exciting, but it was a break that I needed after my last job, which was just crazy. And my purpose in life is, if I'm doing a job, I'm going to do it well. And if I can solve a problem, that's how I am. I see things and I'm like, well, we can do this a different way. And they're like, all right, Tracy, it's your job. Go do it. But when I stop bringing up those, those things that I see that can fix, because what does it matter anymore? I think that's another one. And then luckily I have the ability where Nikki was around and I'm like, all right, I'm coming to work for you.
And your feedback is always appreciated here, even when it's hard to hear. I think that speaks to the depersonalization element, that in the sense of personal accomplishment, really, because that feeling of I don't necessarily, I don't give a crap if it gets fixed, or like it's not my job to fix it, really sort of says like, okay, I'm no longer connected to this work, and you're less plugged in, you're sort of floating above it and less emotionally invested in it. So I think that is absolutely a sign of some burnout. And you had come from a difficult position at that point, right? Hadn't you wasn't that when you were working at the immigration attorney before that?
Yeah, talk about very rewarding work, but a very unrewarding place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Todd, what about you? Have you noticed any of that in your own life? Any of those feelings of emotional exhaustion, or a sense of kind of removal from the accomplishment of the work?
Yeah, definitely. And it's sometimes a bit of whiplash, because as you're doing the work, especially with the people you serve, it's very rewarding. And I find that that's kind of what I need to get plugged back into it when I start to pull out of it, but there's no doubt that there's some times that you get, bogged down in the bureaucracy of administration and boards and everything else, and, need that kind of hands-on. And for me, it's especially important because my job before this one was at Music is Art. And so we were literally putting an instrument in a kid's hand. And now it's okay, I'm teaching cash flow forecasting, wow. Every once in a while, you need that sort of personal connection with something very creative, or you just, I think it's what everyone else said. You just kind of stop caring quite as much. It doesn't become your passion. It just becomes your job.
Mm-hmm. I relate to that so much because I actually spent a good amount of time in an organization that served at-risk refugee women. And in the work that I did there, I was very much the infrastructure, very much the administrator. And so my everyday was not necessarily moving papers from right to left, but I was a few steps removed from clients. And I think some of it is personality driven, and that I really needed to be able to make sure that I went out and saw the people we were serving, even if that meant that I went to, a case study visit or things like that with someone else, just to see, okay, these are our clients, and this is why I'm doing this. And, my 40 hours a week were kind of validated by those 2 or 3 hours that I spent making sure that I got to 40 hours. Which one of us is working 40 hours, right? But, I would make sure to spend 2 or 3 hours actually exposed to clients, even though it didn't necessarily fit my job description, because it made it worthwhile for me. But I relate a lot to that switch that you shared. Kirsten, what about you? Is there anything resonating with you about those 3 points? Sorry to call on you. I hope your internet is working.
Well, I do feel all of those things. This organization isn't so much direct social services. It's an investigative news organization. So reporters are doing their thing, and I'm fairly separated from what they're doing. My stress comes less from, I've worked a nonprofit job where if I didn't make the goal, people got fired. And that's true here as well. So that's where the stress comes from. It doesn't come from, seeing people confronting you who are upset. It's knowing that the organization can't do its mission if I don't succeed. It's important. And, and it mostly doesn't happen in big pieces. It happens in little tiny, tiny steps.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We could all probably relate to that feeling, right?
Sometimes stepping on a very small Lego still hurts.
Yes, 100%. Are you, Kirsten, I can't remember, are you in development at Investigative Post?
Yes, I'm the
Okay, gotcha. And that's hard work because you really have to make sure that people who give to you feel emotionally connected to the work. And so that means that you have to really be attempting to speak to all of these different people in a really particular way and accessing them through different channels. And that could be really, I think, a really challenging thing to do. Do you struggle at all with feeling like it's a few steps removed, or is that something that you are that you're really used to being in development for a while?
I don't. It's not unusual in development that you're removed a little bit, even when it was a more social service cause. I was not actually providing social services, and there's always kind of a push and pull between the services and the fundraiser, because the program staff don't want to prostitute themselves for fundraising, and they can get kind of concerned about that, of where does my mission and your fundraising interact. But so I guess I feel like it's always the case that I'm a little separated, but and it's often the case that I feel like the program staff aren't invested in what I'm doing, even though it's their jobs on the line.
Yeah, got it.
Here I haven't felt like that since I started here. This organization
they understand better.
Is in a good financial position, but I have worked for nonprofits where it was you know, where I just stopped sleeping because I knew how very scary it was.
I think a couple of us can relate.
Part of it is hard is that we have access to information that is hard to be aware of.
Yeah, you do. Well, I mean, I'm certain that you know more than I do, but just reading your stories, I'm like, oh God.
You're local, you know our stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
this place is financially, I'm new here, so I haven't had that kind of stress here, just to be clear.
No.
But back when I was in Washington State, I worked for a nonprofit that was, you know, where it was close.
Yeah. I think we've, all of us in this room can either relate to that in our current spot or can relate to it from, you know, having been at an organization like that at one time. And it is not easy, and I would not want to be the development person in that case. So let's take a second and brainstorm, or share what's working for you when it feels like you're kind of at the end of your resources and you're kind of, you know, you're attempting essentially to pump out your last bit of energy to get something done, and it's just not happening. What are some triage things that have worked for you when you need to engage in self-care? What are the things that have helped you re-tap into that energy? Judy, you were mentioning earlier that you like to go on walks. I kind of relate to that. Spending time in nature has been really critical for me, even if that's just saying like, okay, you know, this next meeting is 15-minute walk away. I'm going to take that time. I'm going to spend that time just walking and knowing that the ideas that I'll get from it a few minutes down the road are going to be really useful. Another thing is, the other day I told myself, if I cross a bench on this walk from one meeting to another, I'm going to sit down on it. Because I never give myself the chance to sit down by myself, and I have a 2-year-old now. So if I'm ever sitting, I'm being climbed on by someone. So making the decision to say, like, I'm going to sit down by myself with no one touching me, even if it's just for 2 minutes.
I'm closing the door to the bathroom and you're not coming in.
That's a big one. It's funny, the things that begin to feel like a treat after a while.
I find that I don't walk when I'm in the midst of my workday. I walk in the morning. If I'm very organized and I'm making myself a priority, which I've gotten away from, and I want to get back to. But when I don't do it in the morning, and what I was doing last year, and I was listening to something that suggested this, when you leave your workday, don't go straight home. Go somewhere for a walk. And it did me a world of good. It helps you unwind. I have a problem right now that I go to work first thing in the morning. I work all day. I might work a really long day. I come home and I still work. And I think going for a walk in between there gives me greater control over leaving work at work. And I'm really terrible at that.
I know when things were really bad when I was at the law office, and actually when I was at the bank for a while, it gets really easy when you have deadlines not to leave your desk. And I used to eat at my desk. And when things get really bad, I'm like, I'm not giving up that lunch hour anymore. And I would go to like a local park, or I would take a walk through the neighborhood. A little bit easier to do in the spring and summer around here than it is in the winter. But, you know, I would schedule a dentist appointment on my lunch. It's living on the corner, but, you know, it's like, you have to leave, you have to get away. It's not.
Yep. I think we might have lost Tracy.
Nikki, can I ask you a question? Is the wind bothering the sound? Can you hear the wind?
If you can mute while you're not talking, I think that might be a little helpful.
Sorry about that. I really didn't realize.
It's not all the time. It's just been a few times. Tracy might be frozen, but I think that we we'll hear from her when she gets back in. Yeah, she just sent me a message and said, I froze. Hey, Todd, what do you think? Has anything come up for you where you can kind of rely on one or two tools to help you just free up a little bit of bandwidth, just a little bit of brain space? Has that ever happened for you? Has that ever anything that's ever helped?
Yeah, for me, it's music, actually. So it's, ideally it's getting to see, a good live show, but if not, just putting my headphones on. So it's a variation of the walking thing. It's really just like shutting everything else out and being able to listen to some good music just sort of clears me.
That makes a ton of sense to me. I realized a little while ago that with the current political situation, I was so often going to, the news or a podcast, and even if I wasn't listening to a serious podcast, I just was consuming information basically to have another calming, happy narrative in my life. And I realized that I was almost never listening to music anymore, and that was something that I was like, I have to work on this, and I'm still kind of getting there. I'm still trying to figure that out, and figure out how it's gonna find a better spot in my life. But thanks for sharing that. Do you have a favorite song?
Oh no, it all depends on what the mood is. Sometimes I need something relaxing, sometimes energizing, sometimes just a good protest song just to get it out of my system, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my husband will listen to old 70s punk rock sometimes when he needs it out of his system. Tracy, you were in the middle of something and you got frozen.
My computer was like, you're not working anymore. This is how you take a break. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was saying Canal Side was nice because you could just go out and, and it was a great place. It was a great place to be when you had a stressful day.
Yes. Yeah. I remember when I worked at a pretty miserable place that I won't name. I was downtown and it wasn't a nonprofit. It was my brief stint in government. And I had a lunch hour, which was really nice. And I took every second of that hour and I would kind of just find little adventures for myself. Because I just needed to be out of a sort of toxic environment. So there was a farmer's market downtown. They sometimes had music. I even had a woman read my tarot cards once just to have something to do to break the, the cycle of how it would be in that environment. Kirsten, what works for you? What kind of gets you back on track and frees up a little bandwidth for you? I think we might have lost her.
You have to put it on hold.
So we talked a little bit about the signs of burnout and a little bit about how it can be when some things that we do to kind of make space for ourselves. I kind of want to invite you guys to take a minute and think about something that you could do every day for the next 7 days. Whether it takes 1 minute or whether you commit 15 minutes, whether you could spend a half an hour, whatever it is, but something that will just free up a little bit of space for you and yourself. I recently went to this training at Gonzaga University where I'm working on a second master's degree in organizational leadership. And one of the directives was, we spend so much time in our head and we never connect to our bodies anymore, which is where, in the metaphor that this guy was living in, that's really where the experience of our feelings really are. Our shoulders get tight and we feel hunched over and we get sick to our stomach, or, we have butterflies or tingles, and we don't sit in any of that anymore. So the challenge that he offered us was to spend 10 minutes by yourself every day. And at first I felt like when I told my husband that I was going to need to turn off work and he was going to have to take the baby for 10 minutes, I felt like I was asking for diamond encrusted facials and a 3-hour-long massage. I felt so silly. It felt so luxurious. And I know that might sound crazy, but it really did. And then the experience that I had was that the first time I did it, I felt great. but that 11th minute where I came back into life and like had to come back into all of the busyness and all of my clients' needs and my daughter's needs and all of the, you know, running a household and all of that stuff, I had just whiplash. It was hard to go back to it because it was hard for me to think about having that experience again. So I kind of made the choice that I was going to keep doing it. I told myself it would get easier with time. And by the 7th day, I felt like I was leaving that 10 minutes just with so much illumination. And I had these kind of magical, like mystical experiences, like a pair of monarch butterflies landed on a porch where I was sitting. I couldn't, like, it felt like, you know, God or the universe or whatever was really saying like, hey, like we noticed, you know? And so anyway, that worked so well for me that I'm trying to continue to incorporate it. And I'm kind of journaling through this process. And I told myself I would commit to it for 30 days. But I'm wondering if there's something for you, you know, if it's just taking that walk every day, or if it's, you know, I'm going to, after my lunch every day, I'm going to sit down and do some desk yoga, just like some really simple chair yoga. Or if it's, you know, I'm going to find 10 minutes to just listen to 2 or 3 of my favorite songs, or I'm going to bring my book with me into the bathroom and close the door, you know. I'm wondering if there's something that kind of hearing a little bit about loss of creativity, about physical symptoms, about, you know, that experience of burnout and how it can remove us from our work. Is there something that you could take from this roundtable and commit to make next week a better week? So I won't pressure anyone to share, but if you did have something to share, that would be really awesome.
Nikki, one of the things that you said kind of struck me. You said 10 minutes alone. I spend a lot of time alone. I spend an inordinate amount of time alone, and I think that's become a problem for me. I think that the more engaged I am with other people, the more perspective I have, and taking the walk is still extremely important for me, and I think that's the thing I want to try. But taking a walk also means I'm outside among people. I'm not at work, I'm not in my car, and I'm not at home working. And I think I kind of insulate myself from everybody else when I think things are getting very challenging, and I don't think that's healthy.
You know, that's a really good point. Some of us have work that really has us zoomed in and doing one thing kind of isolated. And if you're an extrovert, and I think that you may be when you're not stressed out, an extrovert, you process externally. So not having the ability to kind of talk through your problems with anyone could be a real creative hang up for you. So that sounds like a great idea, though, that you'll just be around people and get to kind of connect with your community a little bit more on your walks.
I think so. Thanks.
I can or sympathize with that, because while it is absolutely amazing to be able to work from my house, sometimes 3 children are not adults, you know? And I like to talk. I'm not a quiet person. So my husband comes home from work and I like slam him with conversation. He's like, I've been around people all day, and he is not an extrovert. So it's like what we both need at that moment is not what the other one needs. So I've started, like, I'll go and work from my mom's house on like Mondays or something. And then, so then I'm surrounded by people, but I'm still working, and somebody else is watching my kids for a little bit. So, and that has been, Mondays are really nice. But I sometimes sit there and go, if I had to parent and do this before text messaging, when I can just vent to somebody without having to interrupt their day, to me, that is as close to socialization gets some days. But it's like an outlet. It's like a 5-minute burst of like, I love my husband, but or my kids are the best people. But right now, if there was a snowbank outside, no, it kind of like gets it out there, and then you can move on.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you think you have something you're going to commit to for the next 7 days, Tracy, or do you need to think about it a little bit more?
I gotta think about it, man. Like, I've been trying to read again because I love to read, and I can like power through. Sometimes it's a problem because then I don't go to bed, and then
I have the same problem.
It's like I want to finish the book, but then what am I going to do when it's done? But I have to finish the book kind of thing. But I've been trying. I noticed that when things get really crazy, I stop reading. And I read nothing of substance. I've stopped reading nonfiction. I can't watch documentaries. Like I can't, if it's serious, like I've got enough serious in my day, I read fluff. But it's, it gets me out of reality for a while.
Yes.
I'm trying.
I relate to that so much. I spend my day in like the statistics and the mire of so many communities around the world. And so when I go to read, it's like, I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's like the paperback novels that you could buy in drugstores.
I call it smut. That's what I read.
What do you call it?
Smut. I call it smut.
Joyzetta, what about you? Can you commit to anything this week to take care of yourself?
I can, because I had figured out a way to help myself. I was overwhelmed, for a while with this. I've been in this thing for 4 years now, directing this museum, and I would I'd take my computer home every night and work till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and that kind of thing. And then I would scare myself to death thinking what I had to do. I came up with a plan, I would say last summer. And what I did, I picked the thing that I hated to do the most, or that I was most frightened of, to do that first. If there was a telephone call that I knew that I had to make, but I wouldn't get, the right person with the right way to handle things. And, some people I was just intimidated, really. And now I started doing that thing first. And that kind of made the rest of the things kind of flow. But then I stopped doing that. And right now I've got last month's reports to give to my treasurer so she can do what she has to do. And she's waiting for that and all that craziness. And actually there's nobody here today. I have dashed away several times today, answering the bell, etc. The receptionist had a car accident. And so she's not here. And the couple of volunteers that we had, the other one, I found her a job. I found her a job with the deputy speaker of the House.
What were you doing, Joyzetta?
She says, I love the museum. I'm still going to give you a couple of days, out of my week. I haven't seen her for 2 weeks. So I gave away excellent help there, but anyway, it's good for her. She likes it. But I think I will commit to really, because I used to make notes. Like at the end of the day, I put down, okay, what do you hate doing the most? That you didn't do today because you're avoiding it. I leave it out, and the next day I come in and I attack that. And I stopped, as I said. But I'm going to grab those information for that report and get it done tonight. And we're going to move forward, and we're going to continue with that strategy because it worked for a while.
I think it's awesome. Todd, do you have any wisdom that you want to share? Anything that you're going to take back with you and try this week?
No, that's part of the reason I'm on the calls. I'm just kind of listening to everyone else and seeing if anything makes sense for me to try.
Great. Well, keep chewing on it. I'm so glad that you were here. It sounds like we've got some pretty good strategies, in place for the team, things we're going to try to implement. And I'm so glad that you were all able to join. Obviously, self-care is sometimes a process. So we're learning a little bit, we're figuring out how to observe, and then we're, seeing where we are, trying to pay a little bit better attention. And I'm grateful for all of you that you took the time to talk about something this personal with a group of strangers on the internet today. I know a lot of you, but that you don't know each other. So thanks for taking that brave step. And I hope that you'll come next month. I'd love to know if you have any topic suggestions, anything that feels really pressing for your organizations these days.
And you can always jump on the website, and we have a little poll. If you ever have an idea, throw it in there. I get them. I pass them on to Nikki. So
yeah.
Or email us, whatever.
So some of this leader care stuff, just taking better care of ourselves and things like that, it's a lot to go over in an hour, especially in a roundtable format. But we might revisit things like this and say, okay, how did it go? What did you implement? What did you try? And one of the things that we're thinking about doing is having topic-oriented speakers come in. So like a yoga instructor was thinking about coming in and sharing a little bit about like, you know, a non-religious type of meditation you could try to just kind of center yourself. And then we also handle really on topic for nonprofit organizations things. So like, you know, troubleshooting grant writing or, you know, event planning for nonprofits. We've done a lot of those little things. I think that we'll continue to try to integrate topics like this one to try to make sure that we're taking better care of ourselves and so that we can take care of our organizations. I'll close just really quickly with a story from recently. I had been in a couple of car accidents several years ago and left with a little bit of an injury to my spine. Nothing big, but something that I took care of, you know, with yoga and exercise and making my way to the chiropractor and occasionally getting some massages, just to kind of keep my soft tissue stuff healthy. And I stopped doing it gradually. You know, I stopped making chiropractor appointments, and then I was going to yoga twice a week instead of 3 times, and then once a week, and then not at all. And I haven't had a massage since 2 years, I don't think, since my daughter was born. And it was these little things that kind of kept me healthy. And for a while, I could ride that. I could ride that decision to, you know, do a little less, and I could, you know, just kind of, you know, cash in the checks I'd already put in the bank by, you know, by taking such good care of myself for so long. And then one day there was nothing left, and I overdrew, and a muscle in my back. This was just 3 weeks ago. A muscle in my back all of a sudden just spasmed, and when I finally got back to the doctor, it was a vertebrae in the middle of my spine that actually messed up my my whole. There's a word for this muscle, but there's a muscle that goes from here to here, and that connects in the middle of your shoulder blades as well. And it just went like this, and all of a sudden I couldn't pick up my daughter. I couldn't pick up, I couldn't sit comfortably at the computer to type. And, I thought that I had been saying all this time, well, I can't do X or Y because I have, this thing to do with Eleanor, and I have this thing to do with work, and I can't sleep in on that day because I have this. And then all of a sudden, no matter what the deadlines were, and no matter what Eleanor needed or how badly she needed me, there was none of Nikki left. And I was a limited resource, and I was spent. And, so I thought about that, and I thought about, what? I thought I was being selfless, and I thought I was, doing the thing that needed to be done in the moment. But now all of these things that need me are disappointed, and all of these deadlines are going to be, I'm going to be behind. And so I've been thinking a lot about that because I'm from a culture where women taking care of themselves is like the least important thing. Maybe all cultures are like this, I think. But, we're expected to give and give and give and be eternal fountains. And I found that was just, a recipe for destruction. And if I had planned 15 minutes each day to just do a little stretching at my desk, maybe it would have been a different outcome. Instead, I lost 8 hours instead of, in 15-minute increments. Anyway, I went to the chiropractor, felt a lot better after 1 adjustment, felt a lot better after 2 adjustments, and then by the end of 5 days was feeling back to myself. But there's no reason that it had to be that way. So I want to invite you to think about the same and think about, what? I'm taking care of myself today so that my organization has me tomorrow. And that's important. What you do is important. What you do is vital. Your communities are more vibrant because you're in them. But if we don't take care of us, nobody else is going to do it for us. And then nobody else is going to be the person that we fill in at these in our relationship with our organization. So keep chewing on it. Keep considering what could work for you. But it's absolutely important that you maintain that creative source, and that comes from a calm place and having the emotional bandwidth to vision for your organization. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you guys being here today. Todd, it was great to meet you. Judy and Joyzetta, great to see you. It was so great to have Kirsten on the line. I know she had to pop off for work.
Mhm.
I hope you really do take your 7-day challenge seriously. And I look forward to hearing hopefully next month how it went. Have a
Okay.
great rest of your day.